Hello, hockey fans, and welcome to part 2 of our look at the great career of Dale Hawerchuk. In part 1, we covered how Dale entered the NHL and his rise to superstardom in Winnipeg. If you haven't checked out that video, the link is in the description as well as the top corner of your video screen. In 4 seasons, he has set records, including being the youngest player to reach 100 points in a season and 5 assists in a single period. The Jets did have the biggest single-season turnaround in their history of the NHL at that point, with Dale's rookie year going from 9 wins and 32 points to 33 wins and 80 points. But after that, the Jets remained marred in mediocrity, despite Dale becoming a star. But in 1984-85, Dale unarguably put himself among the elite. As an 18-game point streak led to a 13-game unbeaten streak to end the season, the Jets finished with a huge 96 points. Second in the Smythe division, Dale himself had career highs across the board. 53 goals, 77 assists for 130 points, third in league scoring. It looked like the Jets finally had a team capable of beating Edmonton. But Dale was injured due to a vicious cross-check by Calgary defenseman Jamie McCown in the opening round. And while they won the series, their first since entering the NHL, but Dale wouldn't play against the Oilers, and the Jets were swept in the second round. But after just 4 seasons, Dale is the toast of the town. He has made Winnipeg his home all year round. He's become a local celebrity. Kids idolize and pretend they are him while playing street hockey, as his poster graces their walls. At this time, sports jerseys were starting to hit stores, and hey, his was selling like hotcakes. He was the main man around town. After the season the Jets had in 84-85, there were high hopes going into the 1985-86 season, which would be Dale's 5th. The Jets seemed like they were thriving under the guidance of Barry Long as their coach and had momentum going into the 1985-86 season, as the Jets were given the 5th best odds of winning the Stanley Cup, and Dale was geared up to lead the way. So here we go, season number 5 for our boy Ducky. The Jets started the season rough with 3 straight losses, including 2 to division rivals Edmonton and Calgary, but Dale still had a point a game. He did, however, help the Jets break the streak with a win over a sad-looking Red Wings team as he set up all 4 goals in a 4-3 win. He then had 2 goals and a helper for 3 points against the Flames, and it looked like a good sign when the Jets decimated the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion Oilers 9-3. Dale with 2 assists, handing them their first loss of the season. And then a goal and 2 assists over the Caps in a ridiculous 7-7 tie. He followed that up with another win over the Red Wings, where he had a goal and an assist. The Jets went unbeaten in 6, and Dale had 10 points in that streak. Had a huge 17 points in 10 games. But then things started to crash and burn seemingly out of nowhere. Dale had a few good games, but his 8 goals and 1 apple for 9 points in 15 games was a far cry from what we're used to seeing. And the Jets just won 3 games all month, and there wasn't really much excuse for it. The Jets weren't really dealing with many injury issues at the time, but their goalie and their defense was just coming apart. It seems to be the same old story. So much so the Jets made a monster move, trading Dave Babbage to Hartford. Babbage was the 2nd overall pick for the Jets in 1980, and I talk a lot about him in the 80-81 Jets video that I have on this channel as well, and part 1 of Dale's video series here. And while he was far from the best defenseman, he really was excellent at times, and a big part of Dale's growth and progression. In exchange, they got Ray Neufeld, a reliable 25-plus goal-scoring forward who brings more size up front. Dale had 2 goals against Kirk Muller and the lowly New Jersey Devils in a loss on November 27th, as the Jets were in the midst of a 6-game losing streak to end the month. And at around that time, the Jets were also parted ways with Robert Picard in exchange for another defenseman, Mario Marois. In December, the Jets' struggle continued, but Dale was back to form. 14 goals, 12 assists, 26 points in just 16 games. He had a goal and 4 assists for 5 points, an amazing night against the St. Louis Blues, and then 2 goals and an assist over a good Blackhawks team. But both games, once again, were losses. The Jets scored back-to-back upset wins, however. They beat Stevens, Langway, Murphy, and a tough Capitals team, as well as the Oilers again on the road, no less. 7-5. Dale has 2 goals in that one and 11 points in 4 games. That's nearly 3 a game. He still dazzles, yet the Jets fizzle. Back-to-back 3-point games, a goal and 2 helpers against the Stars, 2 goals and an apple against the Kings. Both games losses. We are halfway through the season. The Jets are pathetic 12-24-4 for 28 points. Remember, they only lost 27 games all year the prior season. The Jets sit in 4th place, just 2 points behind the Canucks for 3rd, while the Kings are gaining on the Jets for 4 points behind them now in last. But Coach Barry Long, well, he's really coming under fire for this. On January 14th, the Jets did manage to score an upset over Stastny Goulet and the Nordiques, Dale having 2 goals and a helper for 3. In a loss to Bourque and the Bruins, he notched 2 assists, both on Brian Mullen goals. He then had 2 assists against Dale Hawerchuk and his struggling Sabres squad in a win. Dale seemed to perform well against the Adams division this month, it seems, but the Jets, however, overall just managed to win 4 games all month, and they were only ahead of the dead last Vancouver Canucks simply because they had more wins, but shared 37 points as the Kings were ahead of them now with 38. Speaking of the Kings, the Jets played them back-to-back, and our hero had a goal and assist in each game. They lost 1 and won 1. But Dale took a trip to Hartford for his second straight and third overall appearance in the NHL All-Star Game. Dale hadn't made much of a dent in the midseason classic, but with 43 seconds to play on a power play, Paul Coffey of the Oilers and Denny Savard of the Blackhawks set him up for a huge goal that sent the game to OT, but the Wales Conference would still win the game. For the month of February, Dale had 12 points in 12 games, but was a terrible minus 14. And the Jets were abysmal, and with 16 games and 1 month to go in the season, they sat at a measly 44 points, now just 2 behind the Kings, and now sitting dead last in the Smythe division, just 1 point behind the Canucks. Dale had a huge 4-assist night against the Devils to begin his month, his fourth coming on a Paul McLean goal to put them up 4-3 with 5:39 to play. But 1:14 after that, the Devils tied it and took the lead at 1:38 and scored an empty netter, and the Jets blow this one as Dale's having one of those superb games as the Jets lose. The media and the fans are calling for Barry Long's head. Next game, they were humiliated 6-1 on the road against Wendell Clark, Russ Courtnall, the below-average Leafs team. And that was it for Barry Long. He was fired from the Jets as they were winless in 9 of their last 11 games and sat at 19-41-6. General manager John Ferguson took over as head coach as he hoped to desperately get the Jets into the playoffs. The Jets would go on to win 4 of their next 5 games, and Dale had 7 points in that stretch. He then scored a goal and 3 assists for a huge 4-point and a big win over the Canucks. As the Jets' recent wins have put them in 3rd place, Dale would reach 100 points, something he has now done in all but once in his 5 NHL seasons, with 2 assists and a win over LA. The Jets were a lowly 26-47-7 for 59 points, but that was enough for 3rd place in the Smythe, and they were in the playoffs. They went 7-6-1 under Ferguson, as the 7 games they won were the most they won in the span of any month all year. It was the worst season they've had since Dale joined the team, and the only time they were in any real danger of missing the playoffs. But thanks in large part to our hero, they made it. And now, it's playoff time. And it's a rematch of last year's Smythe Division semifinal opening round series as the Jets face the Calgary Flames. Jamie McCowan's vicious cross-check that put Hawerchuk out of action is still lingering in the minds of Jets fans, and again, it crippled their chances of beating Edmonton last season. This year, however, the Jets are big underdogs as the Flames are far ahead of them in 2nd place with 89 points, 30 more than the Jets. They were led by team captain Lanny McDonald, and along with Dan Quinn, Hockenlube, Colin Patterson, and Doug Riseborough, there are 2 major new additions. Joe Mullen, who was a scoring star for the St. Louis Blues, and playoff-savvy John Tonelli, who was an all-star with the Islanders and won himself 4 Stanley Cups while there. On defense, they are still led by Al McInnes and Paul Reinhart, while McCowan is indeed still there, and they are now joined by that year's Calder Trophy winners, the league's Rookie of the Year, Gary Suter, and a net unheralded rookie, Mike Vernon, which some thought the Jets can really expose that weakness. Game 1 in Calgary, the Flames struck first, past the midway point of the first period, but on a power play, it's Mullen to Dale to Marwa, who ties the game, but the Flames are just too good on this night and dominate the Jets 5-1 as their goaltending continues to get weaker in Winnipeg. Game 2, the Jets are a little more determined and put on a lot of pressure on Vernon, but the Flames still led 2-0 after 1. But then in the second period, Dale sets up Ray Neufeld for a goal. The Jets are down by a goal, but Calgary takes a 4-1 lead and they lead 5-2 after 2. The Jets spend the rest of the game playing catch-up. They lose 6-4. They trail the series 2-0 and are on the verge of being swept. Game 3 in Winnipeg, and Calgary takes a 2-0 game lead, easy for me to say, but a goal from Neufeld makes it 2-1 after 1. Mike Vernon is playing great in net, but so is the Jets and their own unheralded rookie, Daniel Berthome, as the Jets have now used 4 goalies in this series, and the score remains 2-1 after 2. McLean ties the game, and then power play, Marois to Dale Hawerchuk to Brian Mullen. The Jets take the lead with 6:55 left, but McInnes scores with 1:43 left. We're off to OT, but at 8:25 in, Lanny McDonald, no stranger to OT winners in the playoffs, ends the Jets' season. Dale didn't play overly bad, but he didn't play overly outstanding either. He averaged a point a game with 3 assists in this series, but it was clear that Jets were going nowhere here after their great season last year, as it was 2 steps up and 5 backwards. The Flames went on to do the unthinkable and upset the Oilers in 7 games in the next round, derailing their dynasty, at least temporarily, and then surviving a grueling 7-game series with the Blues, made it to the Stanley Cup, and lost to the Montreal Canadiens. Dale's season, however, didn't quite end yet. He decided to play for Team Canada at the 1986 World Ice Hockey Championships in the Soviet Union, and in 8 games scored 2 goals and 4 assists for 6 points. Not bad at all, and helped Canada to a bronze medal, giving him his 2nd bronze in the world. Thomas Steen, his Jets teammate, won a silver for Sweden. Dale's 5th season saw him score 46 goals and 59 assists for 105 points, the 2nd best point total of his career. And indeed, it was the 4th time in his 5 seasons he has reached the century mark. Once again, his best chemistry is with Brian Mullen and Paul McLean, though both of them took heavy criticism for their play this year, especially McLean. Be that as it may, Mullen set up Dale for 16 of his 46 goals, just above a third. And Dale returned the favor with Mullen with the same number, assisting on 16 of his goals as well. That's more than half, as Mullen had 28 goals in the year. The two collaborated for 9 assists together, creating 41 different goals. As for McLean, they had similar numbers, creating a total of 38 different goals, including setting up McLean for 16 of his 27, more than half. But losing Babbage was some cause for concern, but Dale still worked very well with newly acquired defenseman Mario Marois, and also created some big plays with Randy Carlisle and Dave Ellett. For the 2nd consecutive season and 2nd time in his career, Dale Hawerchuk finished in the top 10 in scoring, tied for 9th place with Neil Broughton of the Minnesota North Stars. And count him up here, 8 Hall of Famers in total out of 10. Dale was in some great company during these years. Also for the 2nd straight year, he finished in the top 10 for power play goals, tied for 9th with former teammate Dave Christian and Oilers superstar Glenn Anderson. Another huge year for Dale, but a big setback for the Jets. His 105 points is the 2nd best of his career, and he's carrying a heavy load on this team that seems to be quite unfair in many ways. He's surrounded by very good players, but nobody's really close to his level, unlike what Gretzky had in Edmonton at the time. But either way, he makes the All-Star game again for the 3rd time. He wins his 4th Molson Cup, as he has won that all but once in his career as well, and his international experience grows with another bronze medal at the World Ice Hockey Championships. Dale's star continues to shine despite more woes in Winnipeg. Dale was committed to this organization, however, despite carrying the unfair load on his back. It seems that, other than Dale, the Jets are just going for the same type of player, as guys who do have size up front can score 20-some goals. In theory, this isn't the worst idea, but there's a lack of diversity going on with their forwards, and their defense and goaltending are having issues again. It means they have to regroup and come up with another plan. After the false hope in the 84-85 season and the big reality check in 85-86, they dropped Scar Arniel for Gilles Hamel. They dropped all hope for Brian Hayward as their goalie. They traded him for Habs backup Steve Penny and the rights to Jan Ingman, who would never play a single NHL game. Hayward would do much better in Montreal. But the goalies they were relying on are not 1, but 2 rookies. Daniel Berthome, who we saw in the playoffs, and Pokey Reddick. Again, they would become known as Pokey and the Bandit. They have a new coach in Dan Maloney, who coached the Leafs, and well, that should tell you all you need to know right there. But everything the Jets were working on improving has faltered. Their power play fell from 5th to 17th. Their penalty kill is once again one of the near the worst in the league. The load Dale is carrying make it a whole lot heavier. He and the Jets started the season somewhat in the middle of the road, with 4 wins in 9 games, while Dale had 8 points in those 9 games, highlighted by 2 goals and a huge win over Edmonton. But Dale, as he does, came alive. For the month of November, 11 goals, 14 assists for 25 points in just 15 games, and a monster +7. He had 2 goals and an assist for a 3-point night against Pat LaFontaine, an aging Islanders club. He then followed that up with 2 assists and a win over the Rangers, but had another 2 goals and a helper for a 3-point night against the Nordiques on the road. That gave him 8 points in 3 games to start the month. He later had a goal and 3 assists for a monster 4-point night, tight win over veteran Marcel Dion, rookie Luc Robitaille, and the LA Kings. Another win over LA 10 days later, Dale had 3 assists on Steen's opening goal, on Mullen's tying goal, and McLean's game winner. Definitely coming up in a clutch in this one. They would lose to the Oilers, however, in a tight battle, but he still had 2 goals and an assist for 3 points in the game. Dale was rolling, and hey, so were the Jets. But then the Jets went right back to their losing ways, winning just 2 in the month of December. Dale plays decently with 9 goals and 3 assists for 12 points in 13 games, which included a 2-goal, 1-assist, 3-point performance. One against his former Cornwall Royals alum Doug Gilmour and the St. Louis Blues, as well as a struggling North Stars club. However, he was a really bad -13. But then January rolled around and we're right back on track. 3 assists against the rising Red Wings squad. And then 5 games later on, however, Dale was on a roll. A goal and 2 assists for 3 points over the sad-looking Devils. 2 goals against the Stars. Another goal and 2 helpers against the Canucks. And at this point, the Jets were on a 7-game winning streak, but it was broken by who else? The Oilers. But Dale still had a goal and a helper, and 2 assists in a win over the Leafs. Remarkable overall. 8 goals, 14 assists, 22 points. An incredible +8, and did so in 15 games. Dale started off February really well, however, with 2 goals and a huge win over Tim Kerr, Brian Propp, and rookie goaltending sensation Ron Hextall, a very powerful and dominant Philadelphia Flyers squad. They won back-to-back games over LA, and Dale was still rolling, but the NHL would forego the All-Star game that year and came up with Rendezvous 87, a 2-game exhibition series featuring NHL All-Stars taking on Soviet All-Stars. The NHLers took the first game, and Dale had an assist, along with Flyer star Dave Poulin, who they both set up Kevin Danino, the Whalers. They would lose game 2, but Dale's experience with international play is about to pay off, and his selection shows he is truly among the NHL elite, proving it once again. He had 10 goals, 7 assists for 17 points in 12 games in February. I mentioned the 2-goal outing versus Philly, but his luck against LA continued later that month with a goal, 2 helpers, and 2 goals and a loss to Calgary after that, as the Jets were looking somewhat unsteady, but overall still pretty good. They had an excellent record still of 34, 24, and 6 for 74 points, just 2 points behind second-place Calgary going into the final month. But they get a little more shaky. Dale still played well, 16 points in 16 games, including a 3-point night for a notch and 2 apples. However, going into the final game of the month, Dale was 2 points short of 100, which could mean he'd only miss it for the second time in his career. But hey, scored 2 assists in a win over Calgary. Despite a rough finish, the Jets finished the season 40, 32, and 8 for 88 points, a huge 29-point improvement over last season, as faith was starting to be restored in the Jets, and now if there's faith from their fans, there's just a little confidence as we approach playoff time. And for the 3rd straight year, they'll be taking on the Calgary Flames, who this year are the defending Campbell Conference champions. Both teams have won 1 series against each other, so this would be the rubber match. The Flames gang is pretty much intact from last year, but some major things happening as they drop Dan Quinn, bring in reliable scorer Mike Bullard. Also, a youngster by the name of Gary Roberts had arrived at the club. And late in the season, so did unheralded rookie Joe Nieuwendyk, who I covered in my last player bio series. The Flames finished with 95 points, 7 more than the Jets for second place. The NHL's playoff format had now changed, as now all rounds, including the first, were going to be under best-of-7 rules. So here we go. Game 1, the Jets had to deal with a sea of red in Calgary, and the Flames led 2-1 after the first period. However, nearly 8 minutes into the second period, Ian Duncan gets it to Jim Kite. Dale scores the goal. The game is tied, and 61 seconds later, Marwah gives the Jets the lead. Early in the third, it's a power play. The D-men, Carlisle and Marwah anchoring it. Dale gets in position. He gets the goal. Drops the anchor. His second of the game. The Jets defense, however, is tremendous in this outing. They get a monster 4-2 win on the road. Game 2, both teams have an intense battle as young goalies Vernon and Berthome are doing their thing in net. But it's each team's defense that's trying to outdo one another. It's scoreless after 1. Calgary finally got on the scoreboard moving early in the second, but it's that oh-so-familiar combo to Jets fans. Hawerchuk to McLean! He scores! The Jets tie it. Then defenseman Brad Berry, who's coming to the ashes to really produce in this series, helps get the puck to Dale, who once again finds Paul McLean! Paul's second goal, Dale's second helper. The Jets lead 2-1. The Flames tie it 2:35 later, but Thomas Steen stunned the Flames with 1 second left to play in the period with a shorthanded goal. The Jets lead 3-2. In the third, Danny the Bandit Berthome is doing his thing, while the Jets defense of Carlisle, Marwah, Ellett, Barry, and Olsen were on point, as were their grinders. The Jets held on to that 1-goal lead until the buzzer went off. They have a 2-0 series lead going home. The fans back in Winnipeg are going crazy. Our hero has 4 points in 2 games, is playing superb playoff hockey, but the Flames strategized to contain him, however, in Game 3 as Joel Otto practically in his shadow all game, but the Jets take a 2-0 lead in the first period. The Flames tie up before the frame is over. In the second period, the goalies are shining. It's still 2-2. The defense is taking hold of the third, but both teams are covering each other closely. It's still 2-2. We're going to OT. The Jets could take full control of the series right here, but Mike Bullard sticks a dagger in the hearts of the fans of the Winnipeg Arena. Just about 4 minutes into overtime, the Flames are still in this thing. Game 4, Winnipeg begins an all-out attack on Vernon, but it's not working as the Jets trail 1-0 after 1. The Flames make it 2-0 in the second, but the Jets stay persistent with their strategy, and it pays off with a power play. Let's see, we have Carlisle, okay. Dale, double okay. Brian Mullen. Okay. The Jets are in this game. Doug Smale ties it, and it's 2-2 after 2. But then just over a minute into the third period, power play again. This time, Steen, Mullen to Dale Hawerchuk. He caps it off. Jets lead 3-2. The Jets made it 4-2. Calgary got one back late, but the Jets take Game 4. Another amazing game from Dale Hawerchuk, who managed to dodge Joel Otto. The Jets are one game away from a series win. They return to Calgary in the sea of red for Game 5, and Calgary's defense and grinders tighten up a great deal, as the Jets can't use a strategy it took to win the last game. The Flames struck first. Olsen tied up for the Jets, but the Flames led 2-1 after 1. They took a 3-1 lead in the second, but our hero goes to work. And what better way to begin your workday with the power play? Randy man to Ducky Dale to Paul McLean for the goal. The Jets close the gap, and then Marwa sends in Dale, who of course scores a beauty, making magic happen. That game is tied 3-3 after 2. However, in the third, Joe Mullen gets the lone goal of the frame, and Vernon holds them in. The Jets can't get the equalizer. The Flames are still in this thing. We're off to Game 6. It's the Winnipeg Wild. Yes, this is the series where that grand tradition began. It looked like a prairie snowstorm, and the Jets fans are ready to see them take this series. The Jets led 2-0 after a Gilles Hamel goal, and 55 seconds later, power play. Tick, Brian, tack, Paul, Dale. Yes, the Jets took a 3-0 lead and would lead 4-0 after the first. Calgary got on the board in the second, but last minute of the second period commenced. Olsen, yep. Dale, yep. Mullen, Brian, that is. Yes. 5-1 Jets, and they lead 6-1 in the third. The clock winds down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 0. The Winnipeg Jets beat the Calgary Flames in 6 games. Now shocked this very heavily stacked playoff experienced team. Our hero played the best playoff series of his career at this point. He was truly incredible. 2 points in each of 5 of the 6 games, giving them the series is giving him 10 points, 5 goals, 5 assists. He led the entire series as the Jets were playing with a whole new confidence, and Dale could at last be there to celebrate a playoff series win, so it must have felt so good. They were getting back to where they were 2 years ago, and Hawerchuk is leading the way. And here we go. This is what Jets fans wanted. A rematch from 2 years ago as they faced the high-powered Oilers in the Smythe Division Final, only this time Dale is here. The story can be written a little different as the Oilers just spent another huge year, so 106 points was tops in the NHL. We're facing a lot more pressure as now they have to try to return to the top of the mountain after Calgary shocked them last season. The gang is here: Gretzky, Messier, Curry, Anderson, Coffey. They're also playing at the highest level they can. Plus, the little pest named Esa Tikkanen was giving them more of an edge, as was two-way specialist Craig McTavish with a huge grab, with sweetest sensation and former star for the Jets in the WHA, Kent Nilsson. Plus, they saw Crusher Krushelnyski, Maniacal McSorley, and they still had an amazing duo in net of Grant Fuhr and Andy Moe. But hey, how about joining Coffey on the defense? Lowe, Huddy, and Greg, and now they added Craig Muni. The Jets were not intimidated. They knew they could rectify what happened 2 years prior. The Jets beat the Oilers in 3 out of 8 outings this year, so it is possible to get there. The Oilers bounced a determined yet overmatched LA Kings team in 5 games. Game 1, Northlands Coliseum in Edmonton. The Oilers pile their pressure on Bertone, but the Oilers' play-out defensive scheme is restricting also the Jets getting to Fuhr very often. The Jets struck 120 into the game, but the Oilers tied at 1-1 after 1. Early in the second, cue the Top Guns, baby. McLean revs up the engine, listening to the howling roar, while Dale's got the puck under tension, begging him to touch and go. Mulling into the danger zone. It's a goal. The Jets take a 2-1 lead, but the Oilers tied as 2-2 after 2. The third period sees very little happen, and we're off to OT. But just 30 seconds in, Glenn Anderson, the clutcher himself, ends it. The Jets drop Game 1. Game 2, Dale takes their breath away as he sets up Thomas Steen. The Jets strike first, but late in the period, 2-12 apart give Edmonton a 2-1 lead after 20. It gets worse as the Oilers start running away with it and lead 4-1, but Neufeld cuts the gap in half to end the second period. The Oilers took full control. They took a 3-goal lead. The Jets get one back, but it means nothing. 5-3 Oilers win. The Jets are now down 2 games heading home. Game 3, the Jet Hangar, known as the Winnipeg Arena, is rocking, and it's a blizzard of white. They have faith, and they're really going to need their top guns to come out flying in this one. And the Jets go with that all-out attack style that worked against Calgary, and they're putting more pressure on Fuhr, but they trail 2-1 after 2, and the Oilers make it 4-1 in the third. Freddie and Dale set up Paul McLean for a goal, but it's not enough. Yet again, the Jets are on the verge of being swept by the Oilers as the top guns pretty much crash and landed. And that's pretty much what happened in Game 4. Our hero was unaffected, just 2 shots and pointless and a -2. The Oilers take the Game 4-2 and sweep the series in 4 straight. Not a great series for our hero by any means, just 3 assists in 4 games and a -3. But this is more a testament to just how great the Oilers were, not necessarily how the Jets were not. Sometimes that's just how it works. Dale played with the heart of a gladiator out there, but the Oilers team knew how to defeat him and his club. They would go on to beat Detroit in 5 games in the conference final and return to the Stanley Cup, where they regained the Holy Grail after beating a tough Flyers team in a grueling 7-game outing. Dale Hawerchuk had 47 goals and 53 assists for an even 100 points, and once again played in all 80 games. And surprise, surprise, Paul McLean rules once again when it comes to working together with Dale, assisting on 19 of his goals. Dale returned the favor for 22 times. That means he assisted on all but 10 of McLean's goals that year. They also collaborated on 8 assists, totaling 49 goals they created with each other. Brian Mullen did not have a great year, but he and Dale still clicked as the two collaborated for 8 assists together. Once again, he worked well with the defense of Carlisle Elliott and now rookie Freddie Olsen. Either way, the formula still worked when it came to goals, but the Jets still had to try to keep this momentum up. Dale, for the 3rd straight year, finished in the top 10 in scoring with his 100 points, was 7th best in the league. And something crazy, that's his 2nd lowest point total of his career in 6 seasons. Oh, wow. I mean, yes, 100 points, his 2nd lowest. And look at this list, count them up. 9 Hall of Famers. And Dale finished 6th in Hart Trophy voting this year as the league's MVP, garnering 11 votes for the coveted award. It's the 3rd time he has received votes for the Hart, as he was a finalist in 84-85. Hey, another banner year for our hero. He reaches 100 points for the 5th time in 6 seasons. He finishes a +2. He gets to represent the NHL in Rendezvous 87 Exhibition Series. He's 7th in league scoring, his 3rd straight season in the top 10, and wins his 5th Molson Cup with the most end-of-game 3-star selection points. He got some votes for the Hart Trophy and still constantly proving how good he is, as he led the Jets to a highly improved season from 59 points to 88 points. Dale once again turns around the Jets' fortunes. We've seen it before. Now only hope we can keep it up. Going into the 1987-88 season, Dale Hawerchuk, at 24 years old in the prime of his career and a great deal of experience under his belt, was allowing his godlike status in Winnipeg to grow, as even at this point arguments were made for Dale as the greatest Jets player of all time, right up there with Bobby Hull. It's very high praise indeed. However, before the season was about to start, Dale was about to experience one of the biggest moments of his life. He was selected to play for Team Canada in the 1987 Canada Cup tournament. Dave Ellett was in Team USA's training camp, but actually would not end up playing a single game. As a matter of fact, also Swedish stars Steen and Olsson didn't play in the tournament at all. But Dale was about to be a part of one of the greatest tournaments of all time when it came to international play, as his Team Canada club has gone down in history as one of the greatest teams ever assembled. It was assembled by a couple men who knew Dale very, very well. First was his assistant coach, Tom Watt, who was the first coach he played for when he came to the NHL in Winnipeg. He knew very much what Dale was capable of. And the head coach of the Canadian team, Flyers coach Mike Keenan, who coached Dale all the way back in Junior B hockey and also coached against him in the Memorial Cup and also in the NHL. And, well, they both knew what an asset he would be. Matter of fact, the whole country did. He was joining, get this, 11 future Hall of Famers in this Canadian team. 5 of them Oilers, Gretzky, Messier, Coffey, Anderson, and Fuhr. Then you have Doug Gilmour, Michel Goulet, Mike Gardner, Ray Bourque, Larry Murphy, and of course, Mario Lemieux. Now, obviously, the media hype was surrounding Gretzky and Lemieux playing together for the very first time, no doubt. But I mean, how can you not be wowed by this team, even on paper as a whole? But Dale's primary role in this series was going to be used as somewhat of a grinding forward, as Keenan believed he would be an asset on certain shifts, and even in this role, he could still score some key goals when he gets the chance. In the opening game of the round-robin series in Calgary, Dale scored his first goal of the tournament, and did so when Canada was down 2-1 and was set up by Bourque and Messier, and the goal was on a youngster by the name of Dominic Hasek, but Canada had to settle for a 4-4 tie in that outing. The second game was at Cops Coliseum in Hamilton, and Canada took apart a young, lowly Finland team 4-1. Dale was set up by Kevin Dineen and Brian Prop for the opening goal just 3:12 in. Then at the next game, still in Hamilton, Canada has a little trouble but ultimately beats a determined American club. Dale's role in this one was to keep up with such forwards as Pat LaFontaine and Aaron Broughton, and fellow class of 1981 draft pick Bobby Carpenter, the final being 3-2. Then it was out to the Montreal 4-4 game against Sweden. Canada took it 5-3. Dale was winning key face-off draws, and the last couple of games has given Canada an edge in that regard. Canada then went back to Hamilton and fought to a grueling 3-3 draw with an amazing Sylvia team. Dale again used him more of a defensive role, but he was a true tiger out there, ferocious as ever, as Canada finishes the round robin with 3 wins, no losses, and 2 draws. Back in Montreal for the semi-final matchup against the Czechs, and Canada finds themselves down 2-0 after 1. But then, Michel Goulet begins. Larry Murphy continues, and Dale Hawerchuk scores to get Canada in this thing midway through the second. The whole team responds to Dale's wake-up call, and they win 5-3, and we are off to the Canada Cup final. And it'll be against the Soviets, who many believe will take this whole tournament. Best of 3 series. Game 1 in Montreal. It's one of the finest games ever played, and Dale again is playing with trademark determination, but they lose 6-5 in overtime. Game 2 back in Hamilton, and Canada could be swept on this night, but just 43 seconds, and Dale and Mark set up Norman Rochefort, and Canada draws first blood, and it goes back and forth, 1-1, 3-1 Canada, tie 3-3, 4-3 Canada, 5-4 Canada, and just when on the verge of victory, the Soviets tie it with 1:04 left in regulation, but Mario Lemieux's infamous OT winner sent this to a third and deciding game. Winner takes all. Dale was about to have one of the biggest story nights of his career. Game 3 took place in Hamilton as well, and the Soviet silent fans taking a 3-0 lead just 8 minutes in. They closed the gap to 3-2, but trailed 4-2 after 1. In the second period, however, they closed the gap to a 4-3 deficit, and then our hero went to work. Doug Crossman got it to Dale, who gets it to Brent Sutter, who ties the game. Huge play for Dale Hawerchuk, and just like that, the game is a whole new one. Then later in the period, Prop to Murphy to Dale. His 4th goal of the tournament. The go-ahead marker for Team Canada led 5-4 after 2. The Soviets tied it, however, with 7:39 to go, but what happened next was etched in the mind of Canadian hockey fans for years to come, and still to this day. Dale was sent to take a key face-off draw with under 2 minutes to play, and he had Gretzky and Lemieux by his side. It's deep in Canada's zone, but sure enough, Dale wins the draw and ties up a Soviet player who falls to the ice, and well, you know the rest if you're Canadian. Gretzky to Lemieux. 1:26 to play. Canada kills the clock and wins the Canada Cup. Gretzky has stated in the past that the play does not work without Dale, and he is recognized for the great game he had by being named player of the game. Sure, Wayne and Mario got most of the glory, and rightfully so, but Dale's contributions were at least recognized, as he was tremendous all through the tournament. He wins his first professional sports title overall. 4 goals, 2 assists for 6 points in 9 games, and was a +4, and was heavily praised by the media for his defensive play in the tournament. Now Dale is ready to take on the 1987-88 season with the Jets in a huge way. And indeed, Dale had a momentum on his side. 4 goals, 11 assists for 15 points to begin the season in October, including a 4-point night against the lowly North Stars club. He followed that with back-to-back 2-assist game against Chicago and St. Louis. Then he had a goal with an assist against sophomore sensation Luca Robitaille and the Kings in the very next game, giving him 10 points in 4 games. And then to end the month, he had a goal and assist, the goal coming in a big OT winner against Dale Hunter and the Capitals. In November, Dale was tearing it up again, but on November 22nd, in a huge home game against Edmonton, the defending Stanley Cup champions, the Jets, trailed 3-0 in the second until Laurie Boschman put them on the board. Randy Carlyle scored early in the third to close the gap to goal, and with 3:53 to play, Neufeld to Boschman to Dale Hawerchuk. The game was tied, and the clock would wind down, and an OT with 34 seconds left. Dale sends the Winnipeg Arena into a frenzy. He gets the huge overtime winner, and it's a 5-game winless streak for the Jets in a monster way. He would then obtain 4 assists against a rising Stevie Y and his Red Wings to end the month with a huge 8 goals, 15 assists for 23 points in just 14 games. Dale in December was every bit as crazy good as always after scoring a goal and a helper in a tight game against the Kings. The very next game against LA, he had a goal and 2 assists for 3 points, including assisting on Ian Duncan's OT winner in the latter. Dale also had a goal and 2 assists for 3 points against Pat LaFontaine in the Isles. He had 18 points in 13 games, but as great as Dale was playing, the Jets as a whole, however, were struggling a bit at 16, 17, and 3. While not awful, certainly not overly good. But then Dale then had 23 points in 15 games, including 2 goals and a tie with Detroit. But in a game against division rivals Vancouver, down 3-1, a Steve Rooney goal closed the gap. Enter our hero just over a minute later, tied on a beautiful play, and then 121 later gave the Jets the lead 4-3. And then he would assist on Paul McLean's insurance marker 5-3 win for the Jets, and a 3-point night in an epic way for Hawerchuk. And then another trio of points, a hard-fought tie against Edmonton with a notch and 2 apples. The Jets sent a huge message to the dominant Calgary Flames with an epic 9-0. Oh, God. I'm so excited here. Win over their division leader, and Dale had 4 assists. And the win was named the second star of the game as Laurie Boschman had a hat trick that night. But either way, this was a huge outing. But then fans on Hockey Night in Canada got a huge treat. A goal fest, 8-8 tie with the Stars. And our hero Dale had 2 assists and 3 goals. A hat trick, the 10th of his career in just 7 seasons. Unbelievable. And he was, of course, named first star of the game without question. On February 9th, Dale would participate in his 4th NHL All-Star game, which took place in St. Louis. An All-Star game that saw, get this, 25 future Hall of Famers, and 3:25 into the game, Dale was set up by Joe Newendike and Brian Bellows to open the scoring, but the night belonged to Mario Lemieux in the Wales Conference in a thrilling 6-5 OT win. The first game back from the All-Star break saw our hero score a goal and 3 assists for 4 points in a win over the Sabres. In the month of February, had 23 points in 13 games and was an amazing +7. And going into the final month of the season, the Jets were 28, 27, and 9 for 65 points, far ahead in 3rd place over the 4th place Kings. Dale had already reached 100 points this season, doing it for the 6th time in his 7-season career. And a spotlight on that Dale is used to came about on March the 5th, 1988, a nationally televised game on Hockey Night in Canada as the Jets visited the Toronto Maple Leafs in Toronto at the famed Maple Leaf Garden. The Leafs were a young bunch, headed up by talent such as Vincent Damphousse, injured Wendell Clark, Ed Olczyk, and Russ Courtnall. Young defensemen such as Al Iverdy and Todd Gill were led by the great king himself, Boreas Salming. Just 9 seconds in off the opening draw, Dale was sent in on goal, scored his 40th goal of the season, again reaching that mark for the 6th time in 7 seasons. The Leafs would tie it later, and literally 11 seconds after that, Hawerchuk set up McBain to give the Jets a 2-1 lead, and with the Jets leading 3-1, power play, Dale to Randy Man to Paul McLean, 4-1 Jets after 1 period. After Doug Smale made it 5-1 in the second, not once, but twice, Dale set up his main man, Paul McLean, and the Jets lead 7-1. Dale has 5 points. The Jets are running away with this thing, leading 8-1, but then Freddie O to Marwa to Dale Hawerchuk make that a 6-point night, as again he stole the show on national TV and had one of the best games of his career, again tying his career best of 6 points in 1 game. He stole the headlines as analysts and pundits and media across the country showed heavy praise of the game he just played. Once again, the quiet megastar shouted loud, not with his voice, but with the way he plays the game. 2 games later, in a tie with high-powered Calgary, he had a goal and 2 helpers, and in the penultimate game of the season, had 4 assists against the Rangers in a tie. The Jets struggled immensely in the month, and would finish a mere 33, 36, and 11 for 77 points. Still good enough for 3rd place, same spot as last year, but they were not nearly as competitive. But here we go once again, as it's playoff time. And oh, look who it is. It's the Edmonton Oilers once again, the defending Stanley Cup champions. The Oilers, for the first time since the divisional realignment in 1981-82, failed to finish first place in the Smythe division as they had 99 points. And speaking of 99, despite another amazing season from Gretzky, he had missed 16 games due to injury. But the gang was there once again, joining the great one, and of course we have Messier, Curry, and Anderson. But they had lost Paul Coffey to the Pittsburgh Penguins due to an ongoing contract dispute and his unhappiness with the management in the club. They added goal-scoring forward Craig Simpson, who played very well. They had their role players, Tikkanen, Crusher, Craig Mack, Marty Mick, Kevin McClellan, and a young Jeff Courtnall. Despite Coffey's absence, they still had a very talented defense, such as Kevin Lowe and Charlie Huddy holding it down, as well as Craig Muni, Randy Gregg, and a tough youngster by the name of Steve Smith, who's emerging as one of the finer defenders in the NHL. And in net, Grant Fuhr. Game 1 at Northlands Coliseum in Edmonton, and on a power play, first McBain to Marois, and Dale is right there to put it in, and the Jets strike, and they're up 1-0, and it's up 2-1 after 2 periods. The Jets led 3-2 in the third after a goal from Neufeld, but completely fell apart. The Oilers demolished them and would beat them 7-4 to take the first game. Game 2, the Jets were much more focused, disciplined, and determined, and our hero was a big part of that. The Oilers led 1-0 and were leading 2-1 in the second, and no, extra man advantage. McBain, let's get scoring. And Dale to Paul McLean. The Jets tie it. It's 2-2 after 2, and goaltender Daniel Berthome is playing excellently in net. Time is winding down, and OT seem to be looting, but Simpson seals the Jets' fate. With 1:05 to play, the Jets are down 2-0 in the series as we head back to the Peg. Game 3, the sold-out crowd at the Winnipeg Arena is ready. It's another whiteout, and the Jets took a huge 3-0 lead after 1 period, but the Oilers came out to tie the second. Then the Jets led 5-3, but only led 5-4 in the third, but Boschman's empty netter put it away 6-4. The Jets finally beat the Oilers in a playoff game for the very first time. Now, Dale was quiet during this outing as Boschman and Seam were the stars of this game, but either way, the Jets have momentum. Game 4, the fans of the Jet Hangar are loud and proud as the last game gave them a great deal of hope. And near the halfway point of the first period, power play, Hawerchuk to Carnile to Elliott. The Jets are the first ones on the board, but a few minutes later, Duncan has it, Dale gets it, and beautifully sets up McBain to score the goal. Yes, the Jets lead 2-0 after 1. In the second period, power play, it's Ducky to Double M. To Paul M, the Jets lead 3-0, and the Oilers tied it before the end of the period. In the third period, the Jets tried to attack Fuhr, but he wasn't having it, and the Oilers got 2 more, a heartbreaking loss, despite an amazing game from Dale, but once again, the Jets are on the verge of elimination. Game 5, back in Edmonton, it's utter humiliation. The Oilers lead 5-0 in the second period. Dale, as always, is the one to step up, gets 2 goals 24 seconds apart. The Jets trail 5-2 going into the final period, but they have nothing left. The Oilers win 6-2 and take it in 5. Well, again, Dale did what he could, but it wasn't enough. He still led his team in scoring with 7 points in 5 games, and did have an incredible performance in the Game 4 loss, and was the one to try to get this team motivated in the terrible loss series of deciding Game 5. Once again, it's another playoff disappointment for the Jets. The Oilers would go on to shockingly sweep first place overall Calgary, then take it a very good Red Wings squad in 5, and won their 4th Stanley Cup in 5 seasons after sweeping the Big Bad Bruins in the final. Well, hey, Dale Hawerchuk had another elite season, 44 goals, 77 assists for 121 points, only second to his amazing 130-point season in 84-85. And the wealth was very much spread out this year. And it should be noted that Brian Mullen now plays for the Rangers at this point, but obviously, since his rookie year, he and Paul McLean, Hawerchuk and Paul McLean that is, have been tearing it up together. And once again, that is the case this year. Dale assisted on 21 of 40 goals that Paul had, just above half. And they worked together to produce 45 goals one way or another. But the man setting up Dale more than anyone this year was Randy Carlyle on the goals, that is, who assisted on 15 of those goals, just above a third. Yes, highly impressive. And together, they worked together to produce 31 goals. Unbelievable. And they seemed to work well in the setup with Dave Ellett, as they had incredible chemistry this year as they worked together to collaborate on assists for 14 goals. Overall, they produced 29 goals one way or another. And a place in the left wing with them often was Ian Duncan, who I had pretty good chemistry with, and also Andrew McBain, as they produced 36 goals overall. Dale, for the 4th straight season, finished in the top 10 among league scorers. His 121 points was 4th best in the league. His 121 points is 4th back then. Once again, proving constantly to be among the elite forwards in the league, and playing some of the best hockey of his career on this list. 8 future Hall of Famers. Oh boy. Dale also once again got votes for the Hart Trophy, this year registering 2 votes, coming in 7th place. Another magical season from our friend Ducky, the 2nd best mark of his career, 121 points, the 5th season with 100 points, the 6th time in his 7th season he reaches that plateau. The only time he didn't was in his sophomore season in 82-83. Fourth in league scoring, 77 assists, actually ties a career high. And speaking of career highs, he tied his single game best 6 points in one game. And as his best always seems to come against the Leafs in his career, he appeared in his 4th NHL All-Star game, scored the opening goal of that game, got a couple more votes for the Hart Trophy, in his 6th Molson Cup. Once again, the only time he didn't achieve that mark was in his sophomore season. But it was what began the season that truly set Dale off on a great path. His performance as a defensive forward in the Canada Cup tournament, and a sensational play in the final game, which included him winning the faceoff that led to the game-winning goal, made him player of the game, winning his first professional team championship. And at 25, Dale had achieved so much. But many were still wondering, why is this team not thriving as a whole? Dale was doing everything almost standing on his head some nights. But the explanations weren't that hard to find if you think about it. It's hard to believe that a team that has a player like Dale Hawerchuk has only made it to the second round of the playoffs twice in 7 seasons. Despite their lack of playoff success as a team, Dale was very happy in Winnipeg. He lived there all year round with his family and wanted to spend the rest of his life as a Winnipeg Jet and retire there. Dale would later go on to say that it truly was a community team in the sense that pretty much all the players lived there all year round during the season and after it was over, and it built a camaraderie amongst them like few others. That certainly is a valuable thing when it comes to any asset of any sports team, but the problem is Winnipeg's breed of players as a whole just weren't getting the job done. Dale was doing his job, to be fair, as for guys like Paul McLean. When you see some of the talent that the great players of this era had around them, Dale didn't exactly get the lion's share. Savard had Larmer, and you can make a case for him in the Hall of Fame. And he also did have a Hall of Fame defenseman, Doug Wilson, backing him up. Peter Stastny and Michel Goulet were 2 incredible Hall of Famers, and they had each other. And you throw in a guy like Dale Hunter, you get results. And yes, you may have noticed him using examples of players who didn't win a Stanley Cup with those teams, but the Hawks have been to the conference final 3 times since drafting Savard, and the Nords have made it twice with Stastny. The Jets did really have good talent, but not enough to get them to the next level. It is a simple case of the Oilers maybe being too good of a team. Well, going into the 1989 season, they are still stacked with talent, the Oilers that is, but took a shot to their heart, as Wayne Gretzky was traded to the LA Kings in the summer, which will no doubt shake up the foundation of the Smythe division. John Ferguson as a general manager was very well liked and respected by his players, and he was a very smart man, but his draft choices and trades were starting to get very questionable to say the least. And a huge shocker, he traded Paul McLean. Dale's linemate of all 7 of his seasons, who's been on more points with Dale than anyone else, was sent to Detroit for journeyman left winger Brent Ashton, who was a reliable 20-plus goal scorer, reaching that mark 5 times in 9 seasons, and having a 40-goal campaign in 86-87. But some pundits thought Ashton would give the Jets more depth. Others thought this was a mistake getting rid of their most consistent scorers ever. Their defense was loaded with talent, but failing to come together. And when you have 2 young goalies in net, you need something even better than what Carlisle, Olsen, Marwak, Kite, and Ellett, who are all tremendous talents, can offer. Fergie's choices in the draft haven't been that stellar either. In 1982, Fergie took Jim Kite, thinking that, that they needed a lot more toughness on defense. And he wasn't necessarily wrong on that regard. And while Kite wasn't a bad hockey player, he wasn't really a guy you could build around. Neither was Ken Danico, mind you, taken by the Devils 6 picks later, but he went on to have a much better career and lent more substance to his team. Also, future Hall of Famer Dale Hawerchuk was still on the board, which would have given them more presence up front, which they always seem to be seeking. The next year, they took Andrew McBain, and while it took him a while to finally break out, he finally did in 87-88, and looked to be the future of the Jets, and spoiler, he was not. Cam Neely was taken by Vancouver the very next pick. And they didn't have a first-round pick in the infamous 1984 draft. They traded it to Pittsburgh, who picked up Doug Bodger. They also traded their 3rd-round pick, 51st overall, to Montreal, who drafted some guy named Patrick Waugh. But the Jets still had 12 picks in that draft. They played a combined 260 games. That's not very good. The following year, in 1985, they took Ryan Stewart, 18th overall. He'd only play in 3 games in the NHL, all with the Jets. And we have to cut Fergie some slack on this one, as the remaining picks in the first round were all busts. But at the same time, when 9 picks later, however, into the second round, Joe Nieuwendyk is taken, well, you can blame quite a few teams on missing the boat there. But to his credit, he stole Freddie Olsen in the 4th round. And they took Pat Elnick, 8th overall in 1986, and that really wasn't a terrible pick. The Jets got quite a bit out of him. He had some excellent seasons, but by 1992, he had left Winnipeg, had 1 good year at Washington before injuries and inconsistent play led his career to fizzle out. Taking the very next pick, future Hall of Famer Brian Leach, defenseman for the Rangers. Also still on the board, Scott Young, who would play 1,181 NHL games, was a reliable scorer, was a tremendous playoff performer in his career, and Craig Janney, one of the best setup men of his era. They took Brian Marchment in 1987, a tough defenseman. And again, if we're going to be fair here, at age 16th overall, Marchment wasn't a bad option. The problem was he only ended up playing 37 games for the Jets and 889 for other teams. So that's bad enough. But then the next round, they took Swedish defenseman Patrick Eriksson, who never played a single game for the Jets. Taking the very next pick, Eric Desjardins by Montreal, who played 1,143 games with the Habs and the Flyers and becoming an all-star in the process. The entire draft class played just 46 combined games for the Jets. That's just downright awful. However, in 1988, Fergie finally got it exactly right, picking Finnish superstar Teemu Selanne 10th overall, though Selanne wouldn't report to the Jets for another 4 years, but, well, you know the rest there. It was the best pick since Dale the team had made. But now they have to worry about this year as Dale gets set for the 1988-89 season, his 8th. Dale started the year with 10 points in 9 games in October, his biggest game being a goal and 2 helpers for 3 points against Gretzky and the revamped Kings. But then came a huge shocker. John Ferguson, after taking over for the Jets as GM in their final WHA season, having been their only GM since they entered the NHL, was fired. Despite the Jets' struggles, this came to a shock to many fans of Winnipeg and across the league. Ferguson, however, after a 5-year break, joined the expansion Ottawa Senators as Director of Player Personnel and was credited with discovering Daniel Alfredson. He worked for the San Jose Sharks from 1996 until his unfortunate passing in 2007, both as a scout and a special assistant to the general manager, and was key in the drafting of Patrick Marleau. But Dale wasn't happy with this decision. He liked what Ferguson had put together, which is all well and good, but he didn't put together a championship team or even a consistent winner. Something had to change, and that change, however, unfortunately, was Mike Smith. Yeah, but anyway, Dale surged forward and the Jets were showing signs of life, as he had an amazing November, 20 points in 12 games. He had 2 goals and an assist for 3 points against the fading Islanders squad. And then a sad-looking Nordiques team hosted the Jets on the 8th of November, and Dale, a hat trick plus 2 assists, equaling 5 points, and also went into the face-off circle with a kid by the name of Joe Sakic for the first time. And then at home, they shocked the powerful Montreal Canadiens team, led by Chris Chelios. Dale with a notch and 2 apples for a 3.8 and a monster 7-3 win. After a big win over Messier and 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion Edmonton, where Dale would be held off the score sheet, he had 3 straight 2-point games and wins over Toronto, Edmonton, and a loss against Detroit. But either way, Dale was playing like Dale does. Brilliantly. In December, Dale would miss his first game since the 1982-83 season as he had minor injury issues and missed the December 11th game against the Canucks, only the second regular season game he has missed in his entire career at this point. But either way, another solid month for our hero. He had 3 assists and a tie with the Kings, then had another 3-point night nearly a week later in a win over Pierre Turgeon and the Sabres with a goal and 2 assists. One of those assists came on McBain's thrilling game winner with 1 second to play in regulation. He then had 2 goals and an assist for 3 over Brett Hull and the Blues. And then on New Year's Eve, against the monster Calgary Flames team, down 4-0, Dale's 3 assists were part of a big comeback, getting a 4-4 tie. The Jets were 14-14-7, and not bad at all. 35 points, sitting in 4th place, but the Canucks had the same point total but a worse record. But the Jets really do need to get roaring if that's the case. Well, Dale certainly did. He had 11 goals, 4 assists for 15 points, but was a really bad minus 13. But either way, he was doing all he can, scoring 2 goals against the Canucks, including the game winner, 2 goals in a loss to Edmonton, and even a unique hat trick of an even strength, power play, and shorthanded goal each against the Islanders. But again, the Jets lost, just won 4 games all month. In February, Dale would miss more games this month than his entire career, missing 3, as he missed 1 in January, bringing his season total to 5. In the month, he had 3 goals, 6 assists for 9 points in 9 games. He had 2 goals in a win over Hartford, 2 assists in a loss to Buffalo. The Jets scored a monster upset as Dale scored the only goal of the game in a win over the high-powered Calgary Flames. Early in the month, the Jets fired Dan Maloney as their coach, and assistant Rick Bowness would take over, as the Jets going into the final 18 games of the season to end the year were 21, 31, and 10 for 52 points, 11 points behind the Canucks for the final playoff spot. Not in good shape at all. And Dale once again played great to end the season, but the Jets went on a 6-game winless streak to start the month. So their playoff hopes were all but officially done, as one of those games saw Dale score a goal and 2 assists in a loss to Calgary. But once again, Dale went to Toronto, once again in front of a nationally televised audience on Hockey Night in Canada, and once again, he kicked the Leafs' proverbial backsides 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points once again against the Leafs. But at least he gives the Toronto hockey media something to talk about other than Harold Ballard. He then had 2 goals against the Kings in a tie where he reached the 40-goal mark for the 5th straight season and 7th time in his career. He had 8 goals, 16 assists for 24 points in 18 games to end the season, but the Jets went 26, 42, and 12 for 64 points, 10 behind the Canucks. The Jets finished dead last and missed the playoffs for the first time since that dreadful 1980-81 season. And it was the year that allowed them to draft Dale, oddly enough. And for the first time in his career, Dale Hawerchuk will not see postseason action. But his season was far from over. Dale Hawerchuk opted to play for Team Canada once again in the World Hockey Championship, this time in Stockholm, Sweden. It was actually named team captain. Joining him on the Canadian team were Jets teammates Brent Ashton, Randy Carlyle, Dave Ellett, and Andrew McBain. Dale was reunited with former teammates defenseman Dave Babbage, who was key in the early part of his career and was now playing for Hartford, and also another defenseman, Mario Marois, who started the season with the Jets but was traded to Quebec. Also, he was reunited with fellow Canada Cup 1987 alums Kevin Dineen, James Patrick, Mark Messier, Glenn Anderson, and Grant Fuhr. Plus, you had the likes of Steve Yzerman coming off a 155-point season, future Hall of Famer Scott Stevens at the time with Washington, and talents such as Brian Bellows and Kirk Muller. Some said this World Championship club ranked up there with the 82 and 85 teams. In addition to these 5 representing Canada, 9 Jets overall went over for the trip. Paul Fenton played for Team USA, Stina Olsson represented Sweden, while Hannu Arvenpää played for Finland. What a tournament it was for our hero. He was incredible. Canada won their first silver medal since that 1985 team, but the Soviets were still an obstacle in the tournament. But either way, Dale's first silver after 2 bronzes. He was amongst the top 10 in scoring in the 3-way tie for 5th with 12 points along with teammates Steve Yzerman and Soviet star Slava Boykov. What a way to end the season. A bit of a high note for what was been a lowly year for the Jets, but Dale Hawerchuk ends it epically. In the 1988-89 season, Dale Hawerchuk scored 41 goals and 55 assists for 96 points, not reaching the century mark for just the 2nd time in his 8th season, but still some very excellent numbers nonetheless, as he played in 75 games. And it seems Andrew McBain did a great job filling the Paul McLean slot on top on the wing with Hawerchuk, as he set up 17 of Dale's 41 goals, just a few shades under half. And Dale returned the favor, setting up 21 of McBain's goals, all but 16, as Andrew had 37 that year. In total, they worked together to produce 44 goals. Dave Ellett was Dale's main assist collaborator, working together to produce 7 together, as Dale assisted with 16 different players. He also worked well with Thomas Steen, who, despite being teammates for years, didn't really work together on the same line as often as they did this season. He still clicked with defensemen such as Carlyle, Ellett, and Olsson. Dale got some votes for the Lady Byng Trophy for excellence in sportsmanship, coming in tied for 10th with 5 votes. While Dale finished 11th in league scoring, just outside the top 10, breaking a streak of 4 straight top 10 finishes, and he has never finished lower than 12th at this point in his career. He reached 40 goals for the 5th straight season and the 7th time in his career, and he has led his team in scoring every season that he has played so far for 8 straight seasons. Things, however, were dubious for our pal, including a career worst minus 30 and missing the playoffs for the first time. But his international experience grows once again as he walks away with a silver medal for Team Canada at the World Hockey Championship, was tied for 5th in scoring, and was team captain. Things in Winnipeg are shrouded in uncertainty, while Dale remains intact as one of the league's true best. As Dale Hawerchuk enters the 1989-90 season, the 9th of his career, the Jets are once again at a standstill. Mike Smith will remain as general manager of the Jets going into this season. Their new coach is Bob Murdoch, who had success as an assistant in Calgary under Bob Johnson, and was head coach of the Blackhawks for a season, which wasn't all that stellar. Murdoch is now the 6th coach that Dale has played for, and even though McBain filled in where McLean had left off, the Jets traded him to Pittsburgh, along with Jim Kite and Randy Gillen, for Randy Cunneyworth, who played all of 28 games for the Jets, Dave McLuhan, and goaltender Rick Tabarachi. And while the trade actually didn't really hurt Winnipeg all that much, as McBain's career fizzled, as did Kite's, but Gillen, however, got his name on the Stanley Cup while in Pittsburgh. The team dropped goaltender Pokey Reddick, while Berthome was reduced to a backup role, as the Jets finally found their starter in the talented Bob Essenza. Dale would later state he felt the team's attitude had become quite pessimistic under Smith's leadership, and it looked like he may have trouble adapting to Murdoch's methods. Things in Winnipeg were not looking promising, but Dale was ready to do what he could with this team and help them win. October, he started with 10 points in 11 games, 2 goals and 8 assists. Huge game against Dynamo Dino and the Capitals with a goal and 2 assists for 3 points in a 6-4 win. However, after that win, he went into a 6-game scoring drought. The Jets still managed to win 3 of those games, but Dale broke his streak emphatically with 2 goals and a loss, however, to the Whalers, and later in the month had 3 assists in a win over Trottier, LaFontaine, and the Islanders. He ended the month with 2 goals, 7 assists for 9 points in 14 games. Not terrible, but not up to his usual standards of play. He was still staying consistent, however, in December with 5 goals and 5 assists for 10 points in 12 games, including a huge night against Patrick Waugh and the Habs, where he notched a goal and 2 apples for 3 points. His goal came in late in the game, representing a 3-goal comeback to help the Jets preserve the tie. Murdoch's team strategy ethics seemed to be working, however, as the Jets were 17, 15, and 5 for 39 points. Only good enough for 4th place, but 7 points up on the Canucks, who were in last. But in January, Dale was back. He went on a roll, a 12-game point streak. It started with an assist over Neely and the Bruins, and a goal over Mario and the Pens, and a goal against Muller and the Devils. Then he had another trifecta of points with a goal and 2 assists in a dominant win over the Capitals. He then notched 2 assists against Stevie Y and the struggling Wings. He had a goal against the Blues, 2 apples, and a loss to a terrible Nordiques team. A goal and a helper against the Oilers, a huge 2-goal, 1-assist game against the Islanders, more luck against the Capitals with 2 goals, and a goal against Rick Tocchet and the Flyers, and 3 assists in a tie against the Blues, including setting up Craig Paslowski on a power play to tie the game with just 9 seconds left to play. His streak came to an end in a loss to the Stars, 22 points in 12 games during this streak, trailing 24 points in 15 games all month. The Jets are staying head above water. In February, Dale had 12 points in 13 games and was a good +3, and had a goal and 2 helpers in a win over the Canucks. And the Jets are at 68 points in 3rd place, 6 points ahead of the disappointing Kings, and just 6 points back of the Oilers. And we have 15 games to go. Dale capped off the year with 2 goals, 14 assists for 16 points in 14 games, missing just 1 that month, as the only game he'd missed all year. He had monster 5-assist performance in on all Winnipeg goals in a 5-2 win over Gretzky and the Kings. And the very next game, a goal and 2 assists against Sakic and the Sack Nordiques. The Jets finished 37, 32, and 11 for 85 points. Good enough for 3rd place and a playoff spot. A surprisingly good season from a Jets team nobody really expected anything from. But once again, we could say, it's playoff time. And boy, here we go. For the 6th time in 8 seasons, the Jets will take on the Edmonton Oilers, who finished 5 points ahead of the peg in the standings. A lot of things have changed in Edmonton. As I mentioned, Gretzky is gone, but they are led by team captain and superstar Mark Messier, who was the Hart Trophy winner as league MVP that year, and they still had stars Jari Kurri and Glenn Anderson. They also had Craig Simpson, who was a very efficient shooter and scorer, as Tikkanen was still getting under the player's skin, but it was a fantastic defensive forward. They also had former Red Wings star Peter Klima, and Craig McTavish is still killing it as a grinding forward, and role players such as Martin Gelinas, Mark Lamb, and Joe Murphy are doing their thing. On defense, veteran Kevin Lowe led a veteran core, along with Charlie Huddy, Craig Muni, Randy Craig, and growing Steve Smith. And in net, Grant Fuhr was under suspension, so they go with Bill Ranford. The team is now coached by John Muckler, who was an assistant for years during their glory days, while Sather still looks on as GM. Many thought the Jets had a great chance here, as many felt the Oilers' glory days were over. That if there was a time for them to beat them, it's now. So here we go. Game 1 at Northlands, the Oilers struck early, but just past the midway point, Paslowski gets it to Doug Evans to Dale Hawerchuk. The game is tied 1-1. The Oilers took a 3-1 lead, but the Jets closed the gap, trailing 3-2 after 1. The Oilers made it 4-2, but a goal from Mo Mehta, who returned to the Jets this year, got them closer, and then Paslowski sends in Dale on goal. It's 4-4 after 2. The Jets then took a 6-4 lead in the 3rd. The Oilers got 1 back, but Teppo Numanin's empty netter gave the Jets a huge 7-5 win. This is their first playoff win in Edmonton ever. This was huge. Dale played a beauty. 2 goals and a +3. But in Game 2, Dale is heavily contained by Oilers checkers such as McTavish, but the Jets still took a 2-0 lead after 1, and they carried it into the second intermission as well. But the Oilers tied it in the third, and in overtime, Mark Lamb scored the winner. The Oilers tie the series. Game 3, however, we are at the hangar in Winnipeg, and fans are shaking the building. As the Winnipeg whiteout is in full effect, the Jets pressure Ranford as their defensive checkers play outstanding. But the Oilers lead 1-0 after 1. Fenton tied it in the second as the game was winding down. In the third, Dale takes a loose puck and goes in on goal. He scores a huge unassisted effort. The Jets win it. Dale with the clutch game winner. Is this really happening? The Jets have taken a 2-1 series lead and can take full command in Game 4. Again, the Winnipeg faithful is as loud and proud as ever as the Oilers took an early lead, but 2:48 later, Steen to Ducky Dale to Kumpel, who scores. The game is tied. Later in the period, Dale to Pat Elnick, 2 assists for our hero, and the Jets lead 2-1. The Jets lead 3-2, and the game was tied 3-3 after 2 periods. The third period saw nothing but good goaltending and defense. We're going to overtime. Both teams press and thrilling excitement as they both get great chances. The first OT ends, we still have no winner. Double OT early on, the Jets go on a power play and have been over 7 in the game. Pretty dreadful. Thomas Steen, however, wins a key faceoff. Dino and slaps it home. The Jets take a 3-1 series lead. They're 1 game away from finally disposing of the Oilers, shaking off the chip on their shoulder. No doubt that they've had for years. Dale has played brilliantly so far in this series. Oh boy, Game 5 and the Jets are ready to do this. The game was tied 1-1 after 1, but then Dale sets up Paslowski for the goal. It's 2-1 Jets. They take a 3-1 lead on a goal from Brent Ashton, but the Oilers tie it to end the second. And early in the third period, Messier scored a goal. Ranford held him in. The Oilers are staying in this series. Game 6, we are back in the peg. This could be the moment, however, in front of the hometown fans, but the crowd is silenced. The Oilers led 3-0 after 1. But then in the second period, Dale and Donnelly set up Kumpel to wake up the crowd a bit, but they still trail 3-1 after 2. Early in the third, 2 men who define the work ethic on this team, Dale Hawerchuk and Doug Smale team up, the latter getting the goal, and the Jets trail by 1. Doug Evans ties it. Yari Curry, however, gives the Oilers the lead, and the Jets press, and Ranford is just too good in net. Yeah, we were going to Game 7. What the hell happened here? Game 7 in Edmonton, and the Jets more or less rolled over and died, as they often do in these situations. Our hero got nothing going, and the Oilers take it 4-1 and take the series in 7. They had it. It was in their hands, right within their grasp. How did they let this happen? They were playing smart hockey against the Oilers and just got way too ahead of themselves. And Dale perhaps played the best he ever has in a playoff series since that 87 series against the Flames, especially in Game 1 and his huge game winner in Game 3. And oh my goodness, again, Game 4, those 2 assists. Little did anyone know at the time, April 16th, 1990 was the last time Dale Hawerchuk would play for the Jets. The Oilers, on the other hand, well, they went on to sweep Gretzky and the Kings. They went on to battle Chicago in a conference final and got by them, only to take out the best team in the league, the Bruins, in 5 games to win their 5th Stanley Cup in 7 seasons. Dale has his lowest scoring season of his career. 26 goals, 55 assists for 81 points in 79 games. Not bad at all, just not what we're used to seeing. Dale clicked well with Craig Paslowski, who was acquired from the Blues, as the two produced 23 goals together, as Greg set up Dale for 6. As 14 different players assisted on a Hawerchuk goal. Dale returned the favor, assisting on 9 of Paslowski's goals, literally half, as Paslowski had 18 that year. Also, he collaborated with Freddie Olesen for 8 assists, and they worked to produce 17 different goals, as he also worked well with defenseman Teppo Numminen. But Dale was definitely missing the powerful right wingers he had for years in McLean as well as McBain. Dale had career lows in goals and points. It was the first time he ever failed to reach either 30 goals or 90 points, but that's not a knock. He still produced, still led the team in scoring, and helped them to a winning record and a playoff berth. But again, lack of playoff savvy is still a big problem. It's crazy that Dale is about to leave, not because it's a bad decision, but a strange irony is that this is the best group of defensemen he's had supporting him in his career so far. But this isn't simple free agency that would lead Dale to leave the team. The atmosphere Mike Smith created in Winnipeg rubbed Dale the wrong way. As I mentioned earlier, he felt that his attitude was pessimistic. He felt the way John Ferguson did things was a lot better suited for team morale. But the fact is, Fergie wasn't getting results. But Dale's point isn't exactly invalid, as time would simply prove. Many were puzzled as to why Dale wanted to leave Winnipeg, since they just had a really good regular season. But again, the playoff collapse against Edmonton was probably their most heartbreaking yet. Just made it the same old story it always has been since Dale's rookie year. His rookie year, they made the biggest turnaround in NHL history at that point. Slipped into mediocrity for a couple of years, then would have an excellent season in 84-85. Then the Jets played terribly the next year, improved the next year highly, slipped back into mediocrity, have another terrible year, and return to a winning record. Dale has made the playoffs 8 of his 9 seasons in Winnipeg and has 2 series wins to show for it. Dale felt that the community feeling in Winnipeg was now missing too, that many players didn't embrace the city as their home. Also, he didn't care for Murdoch's new strategy, which many laughed at Dale for even suggesting since the man won Coach of the Year. But like Tom Watt and many others who came after him, he didn't last. Dale pretty much foresaw that things weren't getting much better in Winnipeg, and like I said, that would prove to be true. He never wanted to leave, but felt he couldn't stay anymore. Right or wrong in his decision, regardless of what you think, Dale felt he could thrive and produce somewhere else. And indeed, on June 16, 1990, during the NHL draft in Vancouver, the Jets sent Dale Hawerchuk, their first-round pick, to the Buffalo Sabres for returning Scott Arniel, Jeff Parker, and the meat and potatoes of the trade, Phil Housley, Buffalo's all-star defenseman, plus also swapping this first-round pick that year or two. The trade came to a shock to Jets fans. Despite rumors in the media, they just didn't think it would actually happen. Hawerchuk was the embodiment of the community, and some felt he had betrayed them. Others thought his frustration was very well warranted. Despite the team's constant woes, Dale was happy to play hockey and happy to do it in Winnipeg for the 9 seasons he was there. Again, he loved the community. He loved its fans. They idolized him. They worshipped him. Count it up, though, as he left the Jets as their all-time leading scorer, 929 points, and as of 2023 is at second all-time in the team's history. He led the team in scoring all 9 seasons he played there, reached 40 goals 7 times, 100 points 6 times, was in the league's top 10 scorers 4 times. He was the youngest player to reach 100 points in a season, a record that stood for 24 years, but is still one of only 4 teenage players to score 100 points in a season. He, of course, won Rookie of the Year and dramatically turned the Jets around. In this epic 84-85 season, he was a finalist for the Hart Trophy, first runner-up, as a matter of fact, to Wayne Gretzky, 3rd in overall points, 2nd in power play goals, and he was a second-team All-Star. Speaking of All-Stars, count him up, 4 NHL All-Star games, and 12 hat tricks. Also his 5 assists in a period, which is a record that stood until late 2023 when Chris Letang of the Pittsburgh Penguins tied it. Despite the lack of playoff success, the Jets did make 8 of 9 seasons in the playoffs. Dale wasn't overly bad in the playoffs, but the team, sadly, over as a whole, just weren't very good. But Dale had 49 points in 38 playoff games. And hey, count him up once again, 6 Molson Cup awards as the Jets' top 3-stars point getter 6 times. And internationally, he was a marvel, winning 2 bronze medals at the World Ice Hockey Championships in 1982 and 86. But his play in the 89 tournament was very memorable, saw him in perfect form as the team captain, leading Canada to a silver medal, finishing the top 10 in scoring for the tournament. And of course, he also represented the NHL in the 2-game Rendezvous 87 All-Star Series against the Soviet team. But of course, his biggest moment, the Canada Cup win in 1987. His hard work and grinding play and clutch heroics, one of which a face-off that led to the series-winning goal for Canada, gave Dale his first professional championship. Well, there you have it. The stats and accomplishments, they tell a big story. 379 goals, 550 assists for 929 points in 713 games, missing just 7 games overall in 9 seasons, also missing just 5 of the Jets' 43 playoff games in that span. But what tells the story was how Dale endeared himself to the city of Winnipeg and became a hero to the fans. And it has been said by many, the only person they feel that could be ahead of Dale as the greatest Jet of all time is the legendary icon Bobby Hull. What these stats don't also tell you is his tremendous leadership. He was a respected captain from his teammates everywhere beyond. He took his role seriously, with hunger and desire to play the best he could day in and day out, even when things got rough. Well, that does it for our look at the legendary Dale Hawerchuk's career in Winnipeg. As next week we prepare for part 3, and we'll look at his career, his new career that is, in Buffalo. Until then, like and share the video. Please hit subscribe. And until next time, I'll see ya!